Greetings, I'm your host, Dr. Wolfula, and when I'm not calling my murder victims bitch, which instantly makes their deaths even worse, I'm here at the Wolfula reviewing movies. October 2022 is finally behind us, but the work continues on, and speaking of continuing, I'm finally reviewing A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Released in 1988 and directed by Rennie Harlan of Die Hard 2 and Deep Blue Sea fame. Those were pretty okay movies, I guess, just don't look up Cutthroat Island. And yeah, I've never covered the fourth or fifth Nightmare on Elm Streets before in all my years of horror hosting. I wasn't what you would call consistent in my first decade of service, I'm afraid, but I gotta finish everything on my plate, and I'm finally making up for lost time.
Krueger! Well, it ain't Dr. Seuss.
The Nightmare on Elm Street franchise was one of the two big blockbuster horror franchises of the 80s, but despite a later start, Nightmare on Elm Street managed to knock Friday the 13th off the throne for biggest horror box office takes annually, and Elm Street's not-so-secret weapon to its success was Freddy Krueger, of course.
You are all my children now.
The Clawed Glove Dream Killer, played inimitably by Robert Englund, was, unlike most horror villains of the time, brimming with maniacal personality, and New Line Cinema took full advantage of this star power by the third entry in the series, Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors.
Welcome to prime time, bitch!
New Line made a large, unheard-of investment in Dream Warriors, a horror sequel, with tons of promotion.
This ain't your average drive-in movie schlock we got here. Nightmare 3 scared up $25 million in its first 2 weeks in release!
And it paid back in spades, making 9 times its budget back. More than twice the box office of the Friday the 13th movie released a few months before it, Jason Lives, and that film is considered as much of a fan favorite in the Friday the 13th franchise as Dream Warriors is to the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Just think, you could make a great, successful horror sequel if you actually put money and creativity into it. Just imagine if they did that all the time. So of course, New Line Cinema needed to make a fourth Freddy movie, so they went to the master, the creator of the franchise, the late Wes Craven, for ideas for a fourth Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Craven's idea was supposedly about time traveling using dreams, I guess, some kind of Christopher Nolan shit. So they of course didn't use that idea and went with a less crazy idea by a guy with a very crazy name, William Kotzwinkle, a children's book author. Kotzwinkle is the perfect children's book author name, it sounds so whimsical. Anyway, Kotzwinkle's idea was pretty simple. Focus even more on Freddy, bring the setting back to the suburbs, and continue the plot thread of the Dream Warriors with very mixed results. Rennie Harlan was brought aboard as director of Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, marking this film as his third directorial effort and launching him into the mainstream. Well, mainstream for a Finnish director. You mentioned the name Rennie Harlan, most people aren't gonna know who the fuck you're talking about.
You certainly left your mark on this town!
The Dream Master marked the halfway point of New Line's classic run of Nightmare on Elm Street films, and marked a turning point in the franchise, especially Freddy's popularity. But how does the fourth Freddy film compare to its much vaunted predecessor? Let's break it down in my review.
So, what about your new movie, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master? Is it as scary as all the others, Mr. Krueger?
Kev, I'll let you judge for yourself.
The Dream Master begins appropriately with a passage from the Bible, something that fans of Freddy Krueger can really appreciate. They've all read that book cover to cover. Anyway, a year after the events of Dream Warriors, Kristen finds herself in front of an old familiar house, greeted by a chalk artist drawing another familiar face on the sidewalk. Hey, wait a minute! That's not Patricia Arquette! What the fuck is going on here? I want answers now, damn it! Well, you see, sir, the producers of the film tried to get Patricia Arquette to reprise her role, but she wasn't interested. She was trying to jumpstart a career outside of horror, so they just decided to recast her character with Tuesday Night instead. Oh, okay, whatever then.
Where's Freddy?
He's not home.
Tuesday Night is okay as Kristen and does the best she can to maintain continuity, but she also has to essentially close out this character's arc and pass the torch like Nancy before her, and it's just unfortunately not gonna resonate the same way if it had been Patricia Arquette. Speaking of passing the torch, well, the other two surviving Dream Warriors return in Dream Master, Joey and Kincaid.
Joey! Kincaid!
with the original actors returning in their cases, but, you know, if you love the Dream Warriors idea in the third movie, this one's gonna really feel like a spit in the face.
It's Freddy. He's here. I heard him.
Essentially, Kristen becomes concerned that Freddy might be returning, bringing her friends into her dreams for help, but they're just like, there's no way a dream killer who cheated death multiple times could possibly come back. She needs to get her shit together.
Freddy is dead, buried and consecrated. We won, remember?
But yeah, no, Freddy is making a comeback, and he goes after Kincaid first because, well, you know why.
Yo, this sucker! Damn!
Kincaid awakens in the old junkyard where Freddy's remains, remain, and Kincaid encounters his dog Jason, who proceeds to piss fire. I think you should see a canine urologist for that, man. The flaming urine of Jason somehow resurrects Freddy, which incidentally was my pitch for Freddy vs. Jason 2. Whatever, Freddy's back, and this time he's filled with piss and vinegar. Well, dog piss and vinegar.
You shouldn't have buried me. I'm not dead.
Kincaid, however, swiftly defeats Freddy, and he lives happily ever after. Roll credits.
Take that, motherfucker!
Nah, not really.
I'll see you in hell.
Meanwhile, Joey nods off while watching MTV while it was still good, and he ends up having a wet dream about Hope Marie Carlton. Who can blame him? But his nocturnal emissions end up a little more on the bloody side tonight. So yeah, 2/3 of the Dream Warriors are summarily executed within the first 20 minutes, and it goes without saying that Kristen is next on the chopping block.
Joey.
The question is, why burn through these legacy characters so fast, wiping out the Dream Warriors so easily and quickly? Well, there's a few different likely reasons. A change of creative direction for starters. Dream Warriors skewed a little more towards the fantasy genre at times, with an almost X-Men style team of misfit teens possessing dream powers and even having some adult main characters. Instead, New Line opted to take things back to basics with the fourth film, focusing exclusively on a group of teens in the suburbs. This measure was of course ultimately taken so Freddy could be the star of these films. Dream Warriors saw Freddy develop more of a personality, becoming this larger-than-life figure that people loved, but simultaneously, Dream Warriors had this rich, diverse cast of characters you actually cared about, taking the spotlight away from Freddy, who New Line wanted you to root for as an anti-hero, killing off shallow characters you won't lose sleep over dying, making Freddy likably evil, and it's hard to have him be likable when he's just being pure evil, killing interesting characters trying to overcome real struggles. New Line's approach at this point was making Freddy the James Bond of horror, whatever that means. Basically this funny villain you love instead of a scary villain you love to hate. Going against Wes Craven's wishes, of course, but admittedly, Robert Englund was terrific at playing funny Freddy Krueger. He was entertaining as hell.
I'm sorry, kids. I don't believe in fairy tales.
Also, of course, by killing the main characters of the previous movie so quickly, that raises the stakes and makes Freddy seem like even more of a threat, more powerful than ever. Though, honestly, it does feel unearned, like Freddy isn't even trying, like he's sleepwalking through the whole movie. You get it? Because he's like a dream killer and stuff. You get it. But yeah, Freddy was becoming more goofy at the cost of not just his scariness, but also his coolness, where we're treated to sights like Robert Englund dressed in drag as a nurse, though admittedly he does look like a baddie.
I want to draw some blood.
The change in tone is also visible in the makeup design of Freddy. It's at this point where Freddy Krueger is starting to look a lot more like a raspberry. Kristen's role in Dream Master is, unfortunately, to efficiently establish the film's new cast of characters while acting as a point of reference for the audience, giving the film a sense of continuity with the previous movies.
So, why the haunted house?
It's not just a house. It's his home.
They tried to go more standalone with Freddy's Revenge, and look at what we got. A montage of a guy closing dressers with his ass. Kristen is dating Rick Johnson at the start of the film, who, despite his appearance, is not played by Christian Slater.
Earth Dallas, hey, You spacing again?
And Rick has a sister named Alice, played by Lisa Wilcox, who also goes to Springwood High, works as a waitress at the Crave Inn, get it? Has her own circle of friends, and even has a shaky relationship with her single father.
You call this vegetation a meal after a 10-hour workday? Christ, Alice, try to think a little more.
Much the same way Kristen has with her mother. You see what's going on, Kristen? You're being replaced by a redhead who's cleaner, blander, innocent, who's more of a typical meek survivor girl archetype that can grow over the course of the film without taking attention away from Freddy.
Kincaid and Joey died last night.
What? I'm gonna get that son of a bitch. Who?
You could also say that Kristen's inevitable death plays with that Janet Leigh and Psycho trope where you kill the chick we've been following since the start, really grab your audience's attention with a shocking death. But it's not really as shocking as it would have been if this had been Patricia Arquette. I mean, who cares?
When two of your friends die in the same day, let me know what it does to your appetite.
Anyway, Kristen's mother gives her daughter sleeping pills because the one thing a child afraid to sleep needs is a good night's rest.
You just murdered me. Take that to your goddamn therapy.
And Kristen lives it up relaxing on a pleasant beach, but Freddy uses this opportunity to workshop his own take on Jaws called Claws. Kristen flees, but she can't escape from Freddy's coolness. You just know Freddy fucks. Like he's getting laid left and right. Anywho, before Freddy can strike his final blow against his old arch-nemesis, played by a different actress, Kristen uses her dream power to unwittingly bring Alice into her dream. You see, Freddy could only enter the dreams of teens connected to the parents who killed him, and Kristen was the last one. But by bringing Alice into her dream, she opens the door for Freddy to wreak havoc on a new wave of teens, and Kristen is cast aside, transferring her power to bring people into her dreams to Alice, and Kristen becomes just another soul decorating Freddy's chest. Man, this is basically what happens to my body after eating Chipotle. Aw, that's sweet, though. Freddy left Alice a postcard before burning her friend alive. How thoughtful. Once the Dream Warriors' loose ends are tied up, Dream Master goes all in with a conventional slasher film formula, which is good for me because it makes reviewing the rest of this movie a lot easier. But it's a shame because the first three Nightmare on Elm Street films were all pretty different from each other, but Dream Master kinda just follows the formula of the original movie. A girl with a troubled family life who, along with her friends, is plagued by nightmares of Freddy Krueger. Alice is essentially just Nancy the Next Generation, which is crazy to say because Lisa Wilcox is 3 months older than Heather Langenkamp. But Alice very much fits into the same mold as Nancy. She starts out as this very mild-mannered girl who begins to become a bit of a head case, paranoid about Freddy.
It wasn't a dream, it was real!
She wasn't crazy, and neither are you. So just cut it out.
And then towards the end of the film, she becomes stronger and is able to take charge.
Fucking A.
Of course, there is a bit more to Alice's character. She does have anxieties about never leaving Springwood and working at the Crave Inn her entire life.
You don't want to get stuck waiting tables for the rest of your life.
I know. It's my greatest fear.
Which Freddy takes advantage of.
Come on, honey. I don't want to be here forever.
But I do gotta admit, elderly Alice does serve up a good plate of soul food.
My favorite.
You're probably wondering what the Dream Master of this film even is, though.
Did you ever hear of the Dream Master?
Sounds like a game show host to me.
And it's just a made-up rhyme that's just a ripoff of an old prayer that Alice says to try to maintain control of her dreams.
Now I lay me down to sleep. The master of dreams my soul I'll keep.
It's not something cool like what the Dream Warriors were, but you could say that Alice reciting the chant makes her the titular Dream Master.
Just have to dream about someplace fun. Remember, you're in control.
Yeah, I still think they just thought the title Dream Master sounded cool and figured out some bullshit way to fit it into the plot.
Dream Master, I think I remember the rhyme.
But yeah, the people in Alice's life aren't as nuanced as the characters seen in previous Elm Street movies. The characters are much more on the one-dimensional side. Slasher archetypes with one or two character traits that can act as a springboard for Freddy's nightmares in Springwood. You got Alice's brother Rick, of course, whose whole thing is that he's into karate.
But, Allison, you must have balance.
Fine!
Swish.
Sheila, who's a nerd with asthma.
You're sucking on the wrong nozzle.
I bet you're the only male in this school suffering from penis envy.
Debbie, a fellow waitress who lifts, watches Dynasty, and is afraid of bugs.
Dynasty again?
And Danny, a jock devoid of any personality that Alice wants to fuck.
You know, you are one major league hunk.
Thanks, Alice. Earth to Alice.
Yeah, these are the characters we have to work with. They're all pretty basic. None of them stand out, and you won't miss them when they're dead. But you can argue that giving the characters broad characteristics gives Freddy the perfect canvases for nightmare sequences that can really land. And speaking of which, let's break down the remaining nightmare murders in Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Once the Dream Warriors are out of the way, Sheila is the first on Freddy's list of murder victims because, well, you know why.
So good luck and go for it.
Despite Sheila being a nerd, Freddy uses her dyscalculia against her during class, but makes up for it by using his sexual wiles against her.
Wanna suck the face?
No.
Taking her breath away. Literally. Dear God, she looks like a dehydrated Jaleel White. Well, at least her real-life corpse doesn't look like that. She could still get an open casket funeral.
What 17-year-old has fatal asthma?
Later, while Alice is receiving a boring lecture via the obligatory Robert Shea cameo,
every society, dating back to the ancients, has had theories regarding dreams.
Is the entire faculty of this school comprised of Shea family members? Alice's brother Rick is busy nodding off in the restroom after his glory hole appointment was a no-show, but it looks like he still has a chance of getting laid.
Rick, make me laugh.
If he's fine with putting a paper bag over this bitch's head. He isn't, though, and takes an elevator ride directly to Japan. And you can tell it's Japan because of all the smoke machines. It's here where Freddy kicks Rick's weeb ass, while completely invisible. It looks fucking ridiculous watching some dude pretend to get punched and kicked like this is a scene from Beverly Hills Ninja.
Ah! Oh! Thank you, Sensei.
But it might be for the best that we don't see what Freddy looks like during this scene. Who knows what he would have looked like? Anyway, Freddy finally just kills Rick with his glove, waking up Alice, and unrelatedly, a drone strike happens outside the class. Obama is such a rascal. At Rick's funeral, it turns out his death was just a prank, bro.
Hello, baby.
And I choose to believe this isn't just a vision created by Freddy. It's Alice's brother being an emotionally manipulative piece of shit.
I'm here. It was a joke, a big joke to fool Freddy. Come on, smile for me.
I mean, Rick just leaves his poor father bereaved while he's just kicking back in a casket, giggling away. Piece of shit.
Good night.
With all these deaths out of the way, we reach the finale of Dream Master. Debbie is next on the chopping block. Nothing gets her in the mood for pumping iron like all of her friends dying mysterious deaths in their sleep. But she forgets that everybody lifting weights needs a spot partner. Luckily, Freddy is here to oblige, making her ripped in a whole new way. What in the Junji Ito is going on here? Roach Arms McGee over here escapes to the nearby safety of the melted caramel room, where she makes her full metamorphosis, and hey, she's looking pretty good. Honestly though, Debbie's death is probably the most disgusting nightmare sequence in the whole franchise.
You can check in, but you can't check out.
One of the more creative too, and it's just based around two vaguely defined characteristics. With all the deaths out of the way, we reach the finale of Dream Master. While Debbie was getting exterminated, Alice and her boy toy were trapped in a never-ending time loop because Freddy says when the plot can start moving again and when trucks stop moving.
So I'm gonna punch his ticket in.
Despite slamming face first into the steering wheel without an airbag, Alice is left unscathed because she's a goddamn Mary Sue. But Dan needs to sit out the rest of the movie at the hospital, and Alice needs to save him. It's revealed here that every time one of her friends dies, Alice receives their abilities. Rick's fighting skills, Debbie's strength, Sheila's, asthma, I guess. Whatever. The point is, Alice is a strong female protagonist now. And this is communicated with a montage of her putting on tons of leather and belts like she's a Final Fantasy character, and casually stealing lines from Sigourney Weaver.
Get away from him, you son of a bitch!
Alice Alice rescues Dan, but after they get trapped in a kaleidoscope together, it turns out she didn't really need to rescue Dan anyway.
You gotta put me back under. You gotta put me back under now.
Relax, son. It was rough, but we pulled you out.
And now she's gotta rescue herself. And I think Alice is gonna do just fine. She can do a flip midair and cartwheels. That's pretty cool. God, this looks like when Yoda fights Count Dooku. Anyway, after a bunch of pointless brawling, Alice uses her supercharged taser gun to tear a hole into Freddy. But the only way to beat Freddy in these movies is by pulling something out of your ass that's the most Deus Ex Machina abstract thing you can think of.
The master of dreams, my soul I keep.
Alice uses her Dream Master rhyme, which causes a laser beam to shoot out of stained glass, setting the souls inside Freddy free, which is really dumb and feels very anticlimactic, but it does look cool, and we do get a brief shot of Linnea Quigley's tits inside Freddy's stomach, so you can't really call this a bad ending. And Freddy finally becomes one with the Force as all of his victims' souls fly off, like this is the ending of the live-action Scooby-Doo movie.
Rest in hell.
In the end, Alice and Dan enjoy time together at the park, making a wish by the fountain that they'll never have to see another burn victim again.
What'd you wish for?
If I tell you, it won't come true.
Something I want to point out, New Line really screwed Wes Craven over with the Nightmare on Elm Street credits. They always put his creator credits at the very end of the credits. That's some bullshit. Anyway, Nightmare on Elm Street 4 is a solid sequel overall. The story is very formulaic and the characters are cliché, but ultimately it's entertaining, a polished horror production with some great innovative effects. The fourth film establishes that these movies are all about Freddy going forward. Everything is in service of Krueger and what he does best. No attention is placed anywhere else, and it really paid off with this movie because The Dream Master was the highest grossing of the original Nightmare on Elm Street films before Freddy vs. Jason, making $50 million at the box office. Dream Master has been dubbed the MTV Nightmare. It's more about slick production, not so much about substance, and it marked the height of Freddy's popularity. 2 months after the fourth film's release, Freddy got a TV show and his merchandise empire really started to take off. Dream Master isn't a high point creatively for the Freddy franchise, but it marked a turning point for Freddy as a character. It's the first film where Freddy really is the star attraction, and with Robert Englund in the role, he's always worth watching. I give A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, a Tuesday night out of Patricia Arquette. Now I lay me down to sleep, the master of dreams my soul to keep. This video is made possible through the pledges of my Patreon supporters, and I'd like to give a very special thanks to the kind folks pledged to my shoutouts tier. All of the support on Patreon means a lot to me, and it helps my dark influence continue to grow. If you like this video, like it, and if you loved it, click the subscribe and bell buttons for more vids. Be sure to also keep in touch by following me on social media at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Dr. Wolfula. While I still have your attention, consider pledging to my Patreon to support the channel and get bonus content like previews, VIP Discord server access, private movie night streams, and credits in videos. Consider pledging at patreon.com/Dr. Wolfula. Also, check out official Dr. Wolfula t-shirts and other merch on tpublic.com/user/Dr. Wolfula. Thanks for watching. See you all next time. Dr. Wolfula signing out.